All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Cera. I was invited here by Dr. Sweet, and she and I worked together at the Recovery Centers of America, where I am still currently employed. I am the holistic practitioner there, so my areas of expertise is yoga therapy, massage therapy, acupressure, Reiki, spiritual counseling, and pretty much Susie Sunshine. Like, that's my job. I want to start off by asking you all to stand up. So Christiana, you can just go ahead and stand right back up. It's super easy peasy. You don't need your shoes. Totally take them off if you want to. I'm going to ask for you to bring your feet right underneath your hips. And they should be facing the same direction. So sometimes we have a foot that likes to kind of kick out. Sometimes our heels kick out. So try to bring your feet right underneath your hips. Take a nice deep breath. And take another one and smile. With your next breath, imagine that you're lifting out of your ankles. Your calves are working, the muscles in your feet are working, your toes are soft, you're not gripping. Lift your kneecaps, and by doing that, you engage the front of your thighs. And breathe. Tuck your tailbone just a little bit. That helps to activate the belly button. So we're not clenching, we're just making that belly button, that umbilicus, active. Just saying hello, right? It lives there. So as soon as you start to activate the umbilicus, it starts to strengthen the back. That helps you come up nice and tall. It holds your torso up nice and straight. It relieves the stress in between your shoulder blades, right? So if we're sitting on the computer all the time, or driving, or texting, activating the belly button helps to strengthen the back, which relieves stress between the shoulder blades. Take a nice deep breath in. Bring your hand to your heart. And breathe into that space. With the next breath, lift the heart just a little bit. So we're not arching the back, you're just lifting the sternum. That drops the shoulder blades and creates space between the ears and the shoulders. Take another breath and imagine that you're breathing right into the center of your forehead. And take one more breath and breathe right into the top of your head. Great. Now everybody, take your hands to the side of your body. Take a nice breath in. Bring your arms overhead. And release. One more time. And release. Great. So make some space. Your friends are too close to each other. And we're going to imagine that our arms are like the empty sleeves of a coat, right? So nice and loose. Feet come to about hips width, maybe a little bit further. Keep your knees and your hips soft, so we're never blocking a joint. Keep them nice and soft. Take a breath. And then start to gently just go from side to side, just twisting. And let those arms be heavy. They're empty coat sleeves, remember? No bones, no tendons, no tension. As they gently start to tap your body, you start to engage the lymphatic system. It's one of the waste treatment plants of the body. Helps to eliminate waste from the body. So as your hands strike the sides of your body, you're asking your lymphatic system to wake up. One more breath. Great. Nice. So now, come to stillness. So everybody take a nice breath in, arms come overhead. And as we exhale, we're going to come all the way forward and breathe forcefully through the mouth. And again. Come on. Trust me, you're going to feel better. Keep going until I hear everybody. I only hear giggling. Wow, I could do this for an hour. Can you do this for an hour? Do it again. One more time, everybody, as loud as you can. How does your brain feel? Awake?
Yeah.
Better? Your body feels like it moved a little bit? Thank you. Please be seated. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about spirituality, holistic services, and recovery. And I'll give you a little bit of information about how I got started on this path. I'm 41 and a half. And I have a daughter. I have a 9-year-old. She's amazing, smart, funny, creative. She's like the best human I know. She's so amazing. I love this kid. And I never really thought I was going to be a mom. I grew up in an exceptionally dysfunctional household. I grew up with an alcoholic father and a chief enabler as a mother. So we had this really toxic environment in my family of origin. And if you've ever done an exercise where you put the person, and we're all studying substance use and recovery, yes? Okay, good. That's important. So if you've ever done the exercise where you put the person who is actively using on a chair or a pedestal of some kind, then their chief enabler comes in, they hold their hand, and then the other hero in the family comes in and they hold their hand, and then everybody in the immediate family starts holding hands, and then it just kind of spreads out like a satellite. Yes? Okay, you have an idea if you haven't seen it? So that's how an addicted family kind of works, right? The chief user is up there on that podium, and everybody else is really catering to the needs of that individual because they're active and they're very, very sick. And we try to help out the best that we can with our limited resources. So I grew up in that kind of household. I grew up in that kind of family. And so I carried those lessons from my childhood and those rules that I learned in my family of origin, I carried them into my adulthood. And I was 16 when I left home. I was 19 when I met my ex-husband. I was 32 when I had my daughter, and I went through 8 years of infertility treatment. It was heinous. I will never have another child because I don't want to go through that again. And it was exceptionally emotionally traumatic for me. And so I had this kind of adult personal stuff living on top of this childhood trauma, right? So I'm trying to function in a world with all of these rules that don't really make much sense anymore. I'm trying to play by a set of rules and standards and expectations from my family of origin that really aren't working anymore. But because my skill set was so limited, my exposure was so limited, I didn't really know what my options were. So I kept functioning on autopilot, right? I kept responding and reacting in ways that had been the norm in my family of origin. It didn't really work very well. I was really angry, exceptionally aggressive. And I grew up really tough. I had to be tough. Not only did I have to be tough because of my family environment, but we were also very, very poor because my dad couldn't keep a job. And we would have cases of beer in the fridge, but no food. So it was like, which little Debbie should we have tonight for dinner? And it was really, really tough. Really, really tough. And so I learned, like most of us learn, the world is hard. The world is tough. And you have to be tough. The world is not fair. Nobody's going to hand you anything. Get out there and get it. And you better take care of you because nobody else is going to. And that's how I was trying to function in this world as an adult, as a married woman trying to have a child. And so I go through 8 years of infertility, and that's what my ex-husband and I, that was our yoke. That was our common goal, that was our purpose, to get pregnant. I got pregnant, my 5th round of IVF. And I said, if it doesn't work, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. 8 years of hormone therapy, 8 years of dealing with polycystic ovarian syndrome, 8 years of being an emotional wreck, on top of all of the crap that I had not yet had the opportunity to unlearn, right? So I'm this very hurt, girl, this very, very traumatized child, entering into adulthood, dealing with more trauma, and I finally get pregnant. And my pregnancy was not easy. I had, through the course of my adult life up to that point, I had gained, I don't even know. I know how much I weighed the week I delivered my daughter. I weighed 300 pounds the week I delivered my daughter. I was a house. I was giant. I couldn't see my feet. I was wearing those corduroy house slippers you get from like Walmart, like the old, your grandfather wears. I was wearing a size 13, and then I still had to cut them on the sides. I have big feet. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I wear a size 11. I have big feet. But I was wearing a men's 13. Like, I couldn't roll over. Like, I was just huge and miserable. So I get through that. I go to deliver my daughter. They induced me a week early because I was so huge. They were concerned that I would be hypertensive and I'd have other problems. And I ended up having to have an emergency cesarean. That was the worst thing ever. I'm like, I don't think I'm doing this again. This A to Z sucks. I'm not doing it again. Deliver my daughter, bring my daughter home, told my ex-husband, I'm done. We're not doing this again. So, because that was the only foundation of our marriage, after we had our daughter, my marriage really just disintegrated. And it was on a very steady but slow and very painful decline. It was really, really awful. And there were more mornings that I would wake up and I would just say, there has to be something else. There's got to be something else. This can't be my life. This can't be my life. And I did not turn to drugs or alcohol to cope. I turned to food. My sister uses alcohol to cope. I use food. And so, yes, I was 300 pounds when I delivered my daughter, and a lot of that had to do with the hormone therapy because I just couldn't lose weight. Trying to get pregnant, trying not to be pregnant, I'd go to the gym. But it was also because I took comfort in food. I grew up food deprived, right? There was food insecurity in our family because we were, supporting my dad's alcoholism. So food was a secondary issue to my parental figures. To us, it was pretty important. And so as an adult, I had the means to feed myself at this point. I had a different lifestyle, and I fed myself a lot. And I still struggle with food sometimes, my relationship to food. I don't struggle with food. I love food. My life goal is to find a partner that cooks, because then I'm happy. My relationship with food is something else, and I'll come back to that. So after the birth of my daughter, my relationship with my ex-husband began to really decline. And I think I was suffering from a little postpartum depression or baby blues. I wasn't really depressed, but I was feeling pretty apathetic. And I didn't have, I think it's a joke for a lot of women when we have the expectation that you have this immediate maternal bond with your child. I think most women don't. Some women absolutely. Some women though, they're like, me? I was like, hey, can somebody come get this thing? It's crying. Yeah, this thing right here. Can you come say it? Yeah, I gotta go. I just didn't feel that connection that I thought I was gonna feel. And after I worked so long and so hard to get pregnant, then I started internalizing, and then that negative self-talk started rolling around inside of my head. What is wrong with me? I'm broken, I'm damaged. I'm not gonna be a good mother. I'm gonna repeat the same mistakes that my parents made. I'm gonna be abusive like my father was abusive because I'm just gonna react in anger, and I'm gonna ignore my kid just the way my mom ignored me because that was how she coped. And I had all of this stuff living inside of my head. And I would go to bed at night and I seriously started contemplating suicide. I really just wanted to die. I just couldn't see anything past my pain, right? And I told this story so many times, and every time I tell it, I get really emotional because it's so deep, right? When you deal with this kind of pain, it's so deep. It impacts you in such a fundamental way. It starts to build who you are as a person. And if you live in that pain, if you suffer in silence, and you allow it to overwhelm you, you will never escape it. And I wanted to die so badly. And I remember rolling over and looking at my ex-husband in the bed one night, and I thought, oh, I'll be damned if I leave my daughter to you. And it's a terrible thought. He's a good dad. We have our issues, but I did a good job picking a good dad. I did a shitty job picking a husband, but I did a great job picking a good dad. And I knew that I could be better. I knew that my daughter, who cracked me from the time she started talking, then I kind of liked her, right? Until like all that like baby, like cuddly, gooey stuff, I was like, ugh. As soon as she started to be able to express herself through facial expressions, as soon as I would talk to her and change my tone of voice, and she'd look over at me like, Mom, I got you. Like, oh my God, that's so cool. I knew that she deserved to have me. I knew that as a teenager, when she started suffering, why did my mother leave me? Why did my mom choose to kill herself instead of being my mom? I knew I have to suck this shit up. I have to get up. I have to do something. If I keep telling myself that there has to be something more, that I have to stop accepting where I am, and I have to go look for something more. Probably about within a year of that epiphany, that desire to be a mom, my ex-husband was injured. He was playing basketball and was pushed from the back, not hard, like he wasn't knocked to the ground, but it's a contact sport sometimes. And the interior lining of his left vertebral artery tore and fell in on itself. And blood pooled. And 3 days later, so that was Sunday, Wednesday, I dropped him off at work because I was working part-time as a massage therapist. That was sweet because I would go to the beach every day with my daughter and he'd go to work because he made a shit ton of money. It was awesome. And so he calls me and like, what do you want? What do you want? I just dropped you off. I'm on my way to the beach with Maya. What do you want? I'm not feeling really good. They're taking me to the ER. Like, I'm on my way. So I go to the ER and he had a stroke because of the blood clotting or the blood pooling in his vertebral artery. It worked itself loose, moved into the brain. He had a stroke and subsequently 2 seizures. We lived in ICU for 12 weeks. My daughter lived between my mom and his mom. And I would leave every day for an hour to go see my daughter, to take a shower, and then I would go back to the ICU. There were some days that I would actually work for an hour or two, so I had money to pay for parking. Because that was really important, because now he's not working. And we have, his short-term disability and all of those things that you set up when you have adult jobs, right? And I still needed money to park. I still needed money to feed myself while I was at the hospital. And I lived with him, literally lived with him in ICU for 12 weeks. Once he had his surgery, he had 4 stents put in his vertebral artery. And if you don't know what that is, there's the artery that comes up in the back of the neck into the brain. That's the vertebral artery. And he had 4 stents put in there to keep it open. Because he was going to die if he didn't have that surgery. And after he was cleared, he was moved to Whittier Rehab in Westboro. And he was there for about 32 days. And so I would drive from Fitchburg to Westboro every day. And if you've ever had any experience with people who've had traumatic brain trauma, strokes or anything like that, their personalities completely change. Sometimes they're able to come back a little bit. He didn't. And so that slow, painful decline went really quick. And so through the course of all of this happening, I had a friend of mine. She's now a very dear friend and a mentor. She and I used to work together, and she was in yoga teacher training. And she would, every time I saw her, Cera, come take yoga with me. Come take a yoga class. I don't want to do yoga. I can't listen, I grew up playing softball, right? I grew up playing volleyball, football, sport. I love sports. I'm very athletic, but I was also very large and hadn't done a whole lot of really dynamic movement in quite a while. I'm like, I can't do yoga. Like, I can barely even, if I try to bend over and put on my shoes, I can't breathe and I pass out. Like, I can't do yoga. No, just come take a yoga class. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. If I take your yoga class, will you shut up and leave me alone? Because seriously, you're getting on my nerves. Yes, I swear I will never ask you again. I'm like, I don't believe you, but I'll come anyway. So I started going to her yoga class, and it was a gentle beginner's class, right at my pace. And she's an amazing, lovely, loving woman. And she would see that I was struggling, and she would offer me modifications. And she would, Cera, you're working too hard, honey. Just back off. It's okay. You'll get there. Your feet aren't important. They live at the bottom of your legs. They're never going away. You don't have to touch them. You're fine. It was so liberating to have someone tell me that whatever I was doing in my body in that moment was okay. It was so empowering to be able to move my body in a way that honored it, that loved it, that supported it. After growing up in this paradigm of toxicity and anger and aggression and violence and just that feeling of never being enough, never being validated. And to have someone say, you are okay. It's like, hot damn, I'm okay. And I would walk out of my first couple of yoga classes. I'm tall. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm tall, right? As tall ladies are like, oh, hey, look, it's another tall lady. I walk out and I felt 6 feet tall. I was like, oh my God. And I felt so sexy. I was like, oh my God, somebody better have sex with me right now. I felt so good about myself. I felt amazing, just so amazing. I'm like, I want more of that. So I started practicing yoga on a weekly basis. And right around the time before my ex-husband's stroke, I decided to go to yoga school. And my friend had been encouraging me and encouraging me and encouraging me. And not in a pushy way, although she can do that sometimes. But I think you would love it. I think you would get so much out of this experience. Just try it. Just go to a class there. Just try it. So I did. And when I came home and I told my ex-husband that I'm going to go to yoga school. Well, we can't do this and we can't do that and we can't. I'm like, listen, I'm going to yoga school. Come hell or high water. You can either get on board or you can jump ship. I don't know what to tell you. I had gotten to the place, and this was where right around that time I had that epiphany that I really wanted to be a mom. And I really wanted to live. I want to live. I actually want to show up. There has to be something more. What can I find that's more? Yoga made me feel good about myself. So if it made me feel good about myself, I wanted to get a deeper understanding of what that actually meant. What is this thing called yoga, right? And I enrolled in school, and it was one of the most life-changing experiences I've ever had. And I didn't start off with the expectation of becoming a teacher. I actually just wanted to be able to do yoga at my house without having to watch a video. I was, we weren't really poor, but meh. So I didn't want to have to pay for classes either. Like, I legit just wanted to do it in my living room. I wanted to have the confidence that I could go through a few poses and know what I was doing. Yoga not only changed my life, but yoga saved my life. It changed the foundation of yoga is to move closer to God. I understand that now. Then, and the message that I was given is that yoga is about building healthy relationships. And you start with the most important relationship. It's the one you have with yourself. And I started building this really, really interesting relationship with myself. My relationship to food changed. Oh, I love food. Oh my God, I love food. I love food like some people love shoes. Like, I love food. Oh my God, I love food. But I recognize how food can be fuel or how it can be a drug. When we eat something that we enjoy, if we eat sugar, depending on what we put into our gas tank, it affects our engine. It affects this machine that we drive, right? So we all know that sugar sends off the same, highlights the same part of the brain as cocaine. We all know this, yes? If you don't, now you do. We know that eating too much fatty food, eating too much fried food, eating too much dairy causes inflammation in your body. It slows down your metabolism. It doesn't digest very well. How long does it take to digest a donut? God, I love donuts. How long does it take to digest a donut?
4 days.
Yeah, it's like 72 hours to digest one donut. Next time you stop at Dunkies for your coffee, think about that. And if you can honestly say to yourself, I'm okay with that, have that donut. Absolutely eat that donut. If you say to yourself, I did have Chinese food last night, didn't I? I think I'm gonna pass on that donut. Give me a week or two, I'll be back, right? It's about creating healthy relationships. The healthiest relationship that I created or that I established was the one with myself. And I started to rewrite the tape that lived inside of my head. I had enough people telling me that it was amazing. I started finding water finds its own level, right? Have you heard that one? If you're working with people who have substance use disorders, you're going to hear that one because it's an NA slogan, right? Water finds its own level. So I started finding my level. And I was so amazed with the people that started to come into my life. I was actually, because of how I grew up in that old tape, I met people who were like, hi, Cera, you're just really funny. I'm like, what do you want? Right? That tough nut, that shell, that exterior. What do you want from me? What are you trying to get? What are you trying to get from me? What are you trying to manipulate me with? What's your angle? Right? Very funny. So these people that started coming into my life were so supportive of my damage. And they saw in me what I could not see in myself at that time. And I've been so blessed to be on this journey, to meet people who inspire me, to meet people who meet me at my level. I am so blessed to be able to take a step back when someone responds to me in anger or frustration or confusion, or they just can't seem to get it together. To take a step back, take a deep breath, and think to myself, oh my God, they are suffering. How can I help? How can I help? Sometimes it's walking away. Not my monkey, not my circus, right? Sometimes you have to walk away. Other times, people need a hug. I'm gonna tell you right now, right? There's a huge, huge boundary, interpersonal boundary that you are going to run into when you start working in this field. Use your best judgment. If it's ever a secret, don't do it. If you ever say in the back of your head, oh, I hope nobody finds out, you better go tell somebody now, because that's gonna come back on you, right? Because something has happened between you and a patient or you and a client that is not okay. And it may be unintentional, right? I'm not implying, I'm simply saying, because I've had those thoughts. It's like, ooh, Ooh. Tell somebody right now. But use your best judgment. I can't tell you how many times I have been standing in front of somebody absolutely losing their shit. Like, I'm a really good hugger. Would you like a hug? And when I hug, I mean it. You're getting full contact. You're gonna get a squeeze. I am gonna take so many deep breaths, and I am gonna engage in that hug. Because we are community creatures. We are meant to touch. We are meant to love. We are meant to be part of a group, part of a pack. And when we cut that part out of us, we cut a piece of our compassion out of our practice. Sometimes somebody just needs a hug. Other times, somebody has been through enough trauma, they don't want to be touched. Okay. Good rule of thumb, ask. Do you mind if I hug you? No, I'm really not okay with hugs. Okay. I respect that. When you're ready, you let me know, because I'm an amazing hugger. Okay. And I've had people take me up on it. They've come back, can I get that hug now? Yes. I am always giving hugs away. It's the best thing ever. It feels amazing. So going through all of this, that's how yoga saved my life. That's how yoga transformed my life. The part of my spiritual practice, and one of the things that I find really interesting about the practice of yoga is the cell in our culture, in our country, is the physical practice, right? So all of us, before we started, we did a little bit of yoga. Wasn't that complicated. It's really just to get the body moving, really get to wake up the brain. That's yoga. So get your body moving. Yoga has been around for over 5,000 years. It's an Indian practice. It comes from India. And the ancient mystics, the ancient gurus, like everybody else on the planet in that time, kind of wanted to figure out where we came from, right? And what is the universe? When I look up, why does this stuff exist? When I look around, why does this stuff exist? Why does this happen this way? That's how we are in our human development. We have lots of different ideas. All of our origin stories across the globe are pretty similar. We have kind of the same origin story across cultures, across the globe, even when we were not talking to each other. I find that really interesting. And so yoga was really about, yoga is a science. So we are asked to be scientists. We have a hypothesis. So I think this happens for this reason or because of this. Then our job is to go out and explore that and figure out, can we support that hypothesis? Can we create enough data and enough substantiating facts to support our hypothesis? And if not, okay, what does that mean? We have no attachment to the outcome, right? It is what it is. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but that means that I'm wrong and I figured out the answer. If I'm right, super awesome. That means I get a gold sticker, right? So yoga is a science, and it asks us to start with ourselves. It asks us to go on this amazing journey, this internal journey. So for me, in part of my growing up process, I'm from the South. I was raised in the South, and we were raised Southern Baptist. And for a little while, we went to a church that danced with snakes. That was weird. That was so weird. And I'm like, really, Mom? This is what we're doing? Really? This is so confusing. And so I grew up pretty fundamental Christian, and I was baptized as an adult. And through this, infertility process, I got really religious. Really religious. And at some point along the journey, I'm like, I have a question. And because I had questions that I couldn't find satisfying answers to, and fundamental Christianity, fundamental religion for me was really off-putting. I had a lot of problems with it, like some deep, fundamental moral issues with religion. And so Christianity and I had a serious falling out, like seriously. And So when I came to yoga and started this journey of yoga, it was really interesting for me to start walking this spiritual path again. But I had to understand what was the difference between religion and spirituality, right? And so as I started walking this path, and my teachers and my mentors started asking questions that led me down this amazing path, motivational interviewing. Have you taken that class yet? If you haven't, take one. Seriously, it'll be the best thing you ever do. Take a motivational interviewing course. And so I'm going down this path and I'm opening these doors off this central hallway, and I'm taking a flashlight and looking around the room, and I'm starting to explore some parts of my life and some parts of who I am and what was missing and what was strong and all of these really dynamic parts of who I am. And one day I'm doing asana, the poses, right? I'm doing a home practice, and I'm moving through, and I'm breathing, and I'm moving through, and I'm breathing. And I was doing vinyasa that morning just because I didn't want to think about it. And I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. And I come into a full forward fold, and I come up, and I take a breath, and then I come into forward fold again. I step back, I come up into warrior one. I'm like, holy shit, I think I just saw God. Like, it just flashed right into the front of my brain, right into my prefrontal cortex, right behind my third eye. It was like a movie screen. I was like, oh my God, I think I just saw God. That's so weird. I need Shavasana. So I lay down on my mat, and I'm just breathing, and I'm like, oh my God, I think I might be having an anxiety attack. Oh my God, this is yoga. Oh my God. So it took me a little while to process through that. But what I realized was in the space between my breath, that pause, that's where God lives. That's where I found God. It was in that deep space that I realized I wanted to live. It was in that deep silence that I rolled over. I wrapped myself around my daughter. And I said, oh my God, I want to be your mom. I want to be your mom. And I didn't realize that deep pause is where I am closest to God. And when you are closest to God, you are your most authentic self. You are exactly who you were born to be. You find exactly what your mission in this life is. You find your purpose. Your job may change, but your purpose is why you are on the face of this planet. There has never been another you, and there will never be another you. You are it. You are special, you are sacred, and you are a divine creation. And in that space, that quiet space that lives in between each cell of the body, each cell, each atom that vibrates at its own most perfect speed, is a direct mirror to the vibration of the universe in the deep space. And in that quiet, that's where God lives. And in that quiet, that's where your purpose lives. Whew. That's heavy shit, right? So what does that mean for you? All of this stuff that I just gave you, what does that mean for you? Well, that's kind of a question. It's not rhetorical. So please feel free to answer. And I'm not asking about your coursework, and I'm not asking about your clients or your potential clients. I'm asking, what does that mean for you?
To me, it says a lot about self-care and how we need to sort of remind ourselves to take care of ourselves.
You have to take care of yourselves, right? No one will ever be responsible for your self-care. And once you move into the working force, we like to say, especially in human services, self-care is so important. Can you work 70 hours this week with no breaks, with 15 clients? Oh, we're gonna give you 5 more, and then probably 10 more after that. Self-care is so important, right? This is reality, this is true, this is true. So making sure that you're keeping an eye on self-care is really, really important. Thank you. Thank you. Yes?
So I really related with your story because I feel like I kind of find solace in yoga and practicing and stuff. And okay, like I had an experience the other day where my friend did some Reiki on me, and she told me that my throat chakra and my root chakra were blocked. And I think that what I kind of took from it was that you need to be grounded to be able to accept yourself, and that's something that I'm trying to work on, is kind of finding myself. So, I mean, I guess it's just important to find out who you are before you can help somebody else.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, great. That's fabulous. Thank you. And I'm going to come back to Reiki. Will you remind me?
Good.
I have a really, I tend to remember really well, but just in case. Do you mind reminding me?
Sure.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, that's fine. So this is really important to remember as you're moving into this field, as you're becoming professionals. And all of you are working. Yes, you're working adults. So whether you're working in this field now, even kind of peripherally, and as you move towards your end goals, if you're working towards an LICSW or you're just advancing your degrees for your job, whatever it is, this is super important because we're dealing with humans. We're dealing with people. This is called human services for a reason, right? So when you're dealing with humans, it's really important for you to be able to try and relate to where they're coming from. You don't have to identify 100%. But chances are, if you haven't gone through a similar experience, you know somebody who has, right? It's really important that you're able to relate to them in a healthy way, right? It's not about your story, it's about their story. But if you find that you're relating and you really want to share your story, you need to get a therapist. You need to get a mentor, or you need to get that outlet. You need that. That is your subconscious, or even your consciousness saying, hello, hi, attend to me. That's self-care. It's okay that happens because we're human, right? And when we're trying to make connections with other people and we start to want to build trust so that we can move towards healing, we have to establish that trust. That means we have to make that human connection. And as soon as you start recognizing that you're having kind of those thoughts where you're over-relating or you really want to share, or maybe you've shared a little too much, you're like, that's your internal signal that you need an outlet. You need someone to go to. And that's completely healthy, completely normal. So don't be afraid of that. Also, don't be afraid of when people are telling you their story, saying, I absolutely understand what you're going through. I've been there, I get it. You don't have to elaborate, and if they start picking because they want to digress, they want to project themselves onto you, countertransference, right? So they want to start doing that kind of stuff. He's like, well, I know I can relate to you, and I'm really glad that we're building this relationship, but I really want to focus on you because this is your time, and you're valuable, and I want to make sure that I'm giving you my undivided attention, right? So there's a really compassionate way of being able to relate, but establishing boundaries. I mean, like, you're a master manipulator because you're an active substance user, so we should probably keep the focus on you, right? And other times it's like, listen, you're a hot mess, this is not gonna work, take a time out, come back to me, and then it'll work. Sometimes that has to happen. Sometimes that's kind of fun, just saying. But that ties into my childhood being, kind of aggressive, like, look. But they're your boundaries, right? And it's important to know what your boundaries are. A-R-I-E-S, yes? I misspelled who one time. I was like, how do I spell who? So I will give you another little piece of information about myself. I was in prison for 9 years. I use that on bad dates, by the way, which I've had several. Dating as an adult is really tough. I worked in the criminal justice system. I worked in the Department of Corrections for 9 years, and I ran substance abuse treatment, residential substance abuse treatment with incarcerated adults. And that was probably one of the most fun jobs I've ever had. The inmates were so much fun. I mean, it was challenging work, but it was fun. It was fun. The security staff was like, do you want a workbook? You want to come sit in on my class? Because you really need some help. It was really one of the most exciting jobs I ever had. And I was, trying to get pregnant during that time, so I had like that kind of stress. And after I had my daughter, I was going through some stuff, right? I already mentioned it. And I kind of imploded, which was interesting because I expected when I dropped my basket that I would explode. I didn't. I imploded. And I got fired. It was like, because the universe kept telling me, I think you might need to move on. I think you might need to move on. I'm like, no, I got this. I got this. I got this. And then finally the universe was like, listen, bitch, you're not paying attention. You gotta go. And I was devastated. It took me about 2 years to realize I suffered from PTSD because I got fired, because I had this plan, right? I worked for a nonprofit at the time, and then I was gonna transition into the Department of Corrections, be a state employee, work in their treatment department, and then I was gonna retire. That's what I was gonna, I had a trajectory. And the universe had other plans for me. Really had other plans for me. And I went to massage school after that. And that is amazing. So I'm gonna bring that around to Reiki. Oh, she went out. Oh, 2 seconds? We'll wait till she comes back? Okay. So that was also a really transformative thing for me. And because I had experience working in the Department of Corrections, I had really good boundaries. My boundaries are really rigid and really far out here, way out here. And I realized as part of this kind of growing awareness of self-awareness, I realized that I started looking at everybody like they were a potential felon. I would go to the grocery store and stand in line, and I would have my back to the rack, because of course we never expose our backs, right? You're in jail. Somebody could shake you. Not likely. But, so I have my back to the rack, and I'm standing there. Let me know if I mess up the microphone. So I'm standing there. And I realize, I'm like, oh my God, you are such a bitch. And I'm looking at the cashier, and the people in front of me, and the people behind me, like I deal with the inmates. My sunglasses were on, they were of course reflective, so you couldn't see my eyes. And I'm watching it, and I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting. And I'm like, I have got real issues. I need some help. And so the universe did me a favor, right? There's no such thing as accidents. There's no such thing as coincidences, because we are divinely created, and because we have a purpose in this life. And our job for this incarnation is to figure out what that life's purpose is. And when we are too far away from our authentic self, and when we are too far away from our life's purpose, the universe will step in, and the universe will say, no. And sometimes it gives us a little nudge, and it brings people into our lives that teach us amazing lessons. Everyone comes into our life for a reason, and there's a blessing in the lesson. And if we focus on the lesson and not the person, we grow. So, Reiki. So, after the universe picked me up and put me somewhere else, I decided to go to massage school. And It was a huge stretch. I mean, if you go from an environment where the golden rule is I don't touch you, you don't touch me, and now I'm rubbing my hands all over naked people. Oh, okay. Right? That's a huge jump. It was really, really amazing because I learned a different set of boundaries. I also learned a different way of self-care, right? So I started, wanting to take care of my body. I started wanting to practice yoga because I didn't want to hurt myself. If I got hurt, I couldn't work. So going to the gym and acting like a jerk, trying to lift as much weight as I could lift or whatever it was, would hurt my body. And if I hurt my body, I can't work. And I want to work because I want to make money. See how that works? Yeah, it just kind of goes around. So I learned a different way to take care of myself. I learned very, very different boundaries, right? And most of us practicing massage therapists, we're not masseuses. Masseuses usually charge a lot more and do extra stuff. I am a massage therapist. I am licensed. I am certified. I carry my own insurance. And I am a therapeutic practitioner. I want to figure out what's wrong. How can I help you figure out what's wrong so we can correct that so you're not hurting anymore? You're not physically in pain. So helped me figure out my boundaries. It gave me a sense of grounding and solace. Yeah, wow, this feels really good to have somebody get off my table and be like, oh my God, amazing. Or they get up and they're like, oh my gosh, I can move, that's so good. I'm like, yay! I had a better idea of who I wanted to be, right? That tough girl attitude, that tough girl act that I had put so much time and effort and energy into perfecting, and I perfected it. I mean, I know my job now is Susie Sunshine, but I was a really good tough girl. I was really good at it. But it felt unauthentic. It didn't feel right. It felt like a costume. It felt like a mask. So when I decided, or when the universe decided for me that I needed to be some other place doing some other thing, I felt closer to my authentic self. So it all kind of weaves itself into each other. And so one of the reasons I became interested in Reiki is when I massage, my hands get really, really hot. Like they can start out cold because the air conditioning is on and I'm freezing. So they can be cold, but as soon as I start working, my hands are hot. And not all, but a lot of my clients are like, did you just heat up your hands? I'm like, nope, that's just me because I'm hot like that. And so I started exploring, what does this mean? And I would start to pick things up. Like I would intuit things. And at first it kind of freaked me out. I'm like, okay, this is weird. And then I would ask questions, but I noticed that I did this in prison. Like I always knew the right question to ask. Like I always knew when somebody was not being completely forthcoming. I am really good at motivational interviewing because I'm like, that looks like an interesting scab. Can we pick at that for a minute? And they're like, I'm like, okay, so let's go over here. So let's talk about this. So we'll talk about this, we'll talk about that, we'll talk about this. Oh, hey, look, it's that scab again. Bink, there it is. And they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know. I'm like, well, it was there all the time. We just had to find it. So I found that I also had that inherent skill. It's an inherent skill set that I have. I'm blessed. Thank you. I know. And I use it in my practice now because it helps to build trust and it helps to move me closer to my client so that I can better understand literally what they're bringing to the table. Now, with that said, it freaks a lot of people out and they're like, okay, thanks. I'm never coming to see you again. I'm like, yeah, sorry. It just happens. So I started exploring this idea of Reiki and what is this? What is that? What is that? Can you guys tell me what Reiki is? Oh, okay.
At least like my understanding of it is it's kind of like moving around like your energies and trying to like balance out, kind of bring up some deep-seated like inner like emotions or just things you have to work through, and it kind of kind of like bubbles it all up. And then it's a kind of about like letting it go, and like it can help with pain and stuff like that too. I've never used it like that.
Did I spell Reiki right?
I don't have a glasses on, I don't know.
R-I-E? Is it R-E-I?
No, he's EI.
Yeah, I'm so terrible at these things. Thank God for spell check. My sister laughs at me when I send a text with like all these misspelled words. I'm like, oh yeah, it was my phone. So you said moving energy balances energy, and there was one other point that you had made.
It can like heal physical ailments.
Okay. Really interesting point. So I'm going to come back to yoga, surprise, surprise. Almost everything that I do comes from a foundation of yoga. It comes from yoga. It comes from my yoga practice. It comes from the philosophy of yoga. Everything that I do pretty much comes through that scope, right? That spectrum, or that lens. There's the word I want. Comes through that lens. The reason that is effective for me is because I've found that absolutely everything actually fits into yoga. It's not that I'm trying to, fit yoga into stuff. Actually, it just fits into yoga. So as I started learning about energy, interestingly enough, you said that your root and your throat, what did you call them?
My chakra?
Right. The chakras are the energy centers of the body, right? And this is an Ayurvedic practice. Ayurveda is the sister science to yoga. Ayurveda is not like our Western medicine, where you go in with symptoms and side effects and they give you like a medicine and they're like, okay, bye-bye. Ayurveda, you come in and you're like, this is what's going on. Okay, so tell me about your marriage. How many children do you have? Tell me about the food that you eat. What time do you get up in the morning? What kind of physical activity do you? So they're looking at a holistic approach to the human condition, to the human body, right? Are you mineral deficient? Is your kapha, vata, or pitta, that's kind of like how your body operates? I'm kapha pitta mixed, so I should not eat dairy. When I eat dairy, it's no bueno for my digestive system. And so I love yogurt, but I'm very, very careful about how much yogurt I eat because my body just doesn't like it. I've tried to be a vegetarian and my body was like, are you crazy? What are you doing to me? It didn't work for me. I need to eat lean protein, lean meat. So I'm very particular about where I get it from and how I eat. Blah, 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 right? So Reiki is about moving, it can be about moving energy, balancing energy, and it can be about healing. And most Reiki practitioners focus on the 7 energy centers in the body that live down the spine. The first one is the root chakra, which lives at the base of the spine and the perineum area. You guys know what that is? Perineum? Perineum? Yes? Okay. No? Anybody know? Because I'll tell you. Okay. So we have the root chakra that lives at the base of the spine in the perineum area, and then the sacral chakra that lives 2 inches below the belly button in the pelvic basin, right? This is red. The sacral chakra is orange. And then we have the solar plexus, which is right above the belly button, right underneath the rib cage, right, where the diaphragm would live. And that color is yellow. We have the heart. And the color is green. Are you noticing a trend? Yeah. We have the throat, which is blue. The third eye. And that's lavender or purple. And then we have the crown. and that's white. So these 7 energy centers do not have a physiological location. When we pass on from this life and we start to decompose because we're dead, if we do an autopsy, you're not going to find these things, right? So these are energy centers in the body, and these relate to different developmental stages in our life. So our root chakra is about our biological needs, and this is really important for you guys because the developmental stage is 0, like birth, to 5 years old. This is food, shelter, clothing, physical safety, money, procreation, sex for procreation, and substance use. That's all in the root chakra. How many people do you know who are users would give up a shower for days? Yes, right? I'm seeing, you guys can talk back to me. That works. I like that. So people who are actively using will give up their shower. They won't eat, right? They will be homeless. They will sleep in a car, under a bridge, on the street, crash on a friend's couch. So those basic biological needs, and you guys are all educated, right? So we know what Maslow's hierarchy of needs are, right? Yes? Yeah. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs actually ties right in to the developmental stage of the chakras. So you start down here at the bottom with your bio needs. We've got the root chakra, which is food, shelter, clothing, all of that kind of stuff, right? So when our root is blocked, and I find everybody's root is blocked to some degree at some point because we're dealing with biological stuff. And we all know that we can move up and down that hierarchy of needs like that. Like if I get hangry, listen, I really need to eat. Like I can't function. I need to eat. As soon as I eat, I'm good, right? I play pool every Thursday night. I love to play pool. I can't play pool if I haven't eaten. And my team captain is like, have you eaten? I'm like, no. He's like, let's get this girl some food. As soon as I walk in the door, he wants to know if I've eaten because I just can't function, right? So I'm down there at that bottom level on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. My root chakra is like, blah, 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 blah. As soon as I eat, I'm like, okay, I'm good, right? So dealing with people with substance use issues, the root chakra becomes very important. Again, this is about physical safety. Right? This is about physical safety. So if you think about some of the toxic families that you're going to be dealing with, maybe even your own family. I don't know where you guys came from, what your circumstances were. I'm not really asking, but if you can relate to some of these things, that's really important. Right? Everybody has baggage, everybody has stuff. I believe that everybody's recovering from something. Something. So you can relate. So if you think about your root chakra and that's blocked, what do you need to do to start to unblock it? So you can use Reiki. Reiki is a great way to move some energy around. So Reiki, typically, we think about, I like stick figures because they're easy. Got our little guy on the table, getting some Reiki, super happy, right? And then we have our practitioner standing here. Oh my gosh, those crazy legs, look at that. And then, so Reiki is usually a hands-off. It's a hands-off practice, right? So in the state of Massachusetts, you can't use touch therapy unless you're licensed in some modality. I'm licensed as a massage therapist, which is super awesome because touch gives me amazing biofeedback. So I'm licensed, which is great for me. It helps my work because that's what works for me. So we're doing some Reiki, right? And we've got this divine energy because we've been attuned and we've opened our chakras and we're balanced. And that divine creative source, whatever that means to you, comes in through our crown, grounds us into the earth through our feet, and we're all balanced. And we kind of act like an extension cord, right? You plug it into the wall, which is here, and then you plug it into the TV, which is here. So the client is the TV, right? So we're getting the energy and we're feeding that energy into the client, which is super awesome. But one of the things that I've learned through my practice is, honestly, they don't need me. They don't need me. There's another form of energy healing called polarity. And polarity is more about, it does this more effective than Reiki. Polarity is really about taking this person's own inherent energy and kind of moving it around to where it needs to go. It finds its level. That's how it heals physical and emotional stuff. That's how that heals, because you're using the client's own energy to find its source, to find its level. Reiki is more about giving them energy, right? That's usually how Reiki is used. I'm going to give you energy. And what I have found is I don't need to. You have your own energy. You have your own connection to divine source. You just have to figure that out. What does that mean for you? So for me, in my practice, what I have learned to be very effective is that because I'm intuitive, I pick up on this stuff. Like, ooh, have you thought about, I'm getting an image of this. Does that make sense to you? It feels congested. Anxiety usually hits me as nausea. Like, ugh, are you feeling anxious? Yeah, I am. That's why I'm feeling this way. Okay, that makes sense. Let's talk about that anxiety. What's going on? Oh, then you start figuring some stuff out. And you're laying down, so part of motivational interviewing is laying the foundation, laying out the dots, so they can go around and connect them. You don't ever fix anyone. Ever. Ever. It's not your job. Oh my God, do you really want that responsibility? I'm gonna fix you. Really? What if you don't? What if they break again? What does that mean about your self-worth? What does that mean about your value? What does that mean about your ego? Yes? No? Maybe? So, moving up the energy line, up the spine, the sacral chakra is, and I'm not going to go too deep into all of them, the most important chakra really is the root chakra. Once you get that balanced, it's going to set up a good foundation to open up the other channels. Bless you. So the sacral chakra is emotions. Its color is orange. It's emotional intelligence, right? There are more than 3 emotions, right, people? Yeah. Guys have a really hard time with that. I think it's a social construct. I don't think it has anything to do with gender. I really believe it's a social construct. Most men, if I'm being really, really generous, have 4 emotions, and I'm being generous. That's only because they can only identify 4. And it's really just a social construct, because as we start talking, they're giving me emotion. I'm like, oh, so you feel blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But I told you I was angry. Right. I heard you. I also heard blah, 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 blah. Right? So the sacral chakra is about emotional intelligence, creativity. This is where our creative juices flow, literally. This is about intimacy and sex for pleasure. So if somebody has been traumatized and they are hypersexual, chances are that trauma happened when they were anywhere from 6 to 8-ish, whether it's exposure to inappropriate sexual content or there was some type of trauma. It could have happened later in life. I'm not saying that that's the only time that can happen, but that means that this is impacted really, really deeply, and it takes them back to a place of emotional vulnerability, right? If somebody who is sexually repressed or sexually hyperactive, then that has a lot to do with their sacral chakra. The solar plexus is the seat of power. This is our big S, self. Do you know the difference between self and self? Anybody? No? Okay, so this is ego, and this is divine. So the little s is who we identify as our person, as our being, our character, our morality, all of that kind of stuff. The divine is the capital S, self. That's the part of us that has that higher thinking, that higher consciousness. That's the part of us that engages in meditation. That's the part of us that engages in prayer. That's the part of us that engages in emotional intelligence, is that higher part of us, right? That big S self. Solar plexus. This is also about the place that we take in this world. This is where I stand. This is what I stand for. This is where we start to make connections, right? Those threads that we send out to other people that we deeply connect with. Yeah? This is also our gut instinct. Don't ever doubt your gut. You have more neurotransmitters in your gut than you do in your brain. I'm going to say that again. We have more neurotransmitters in our gut than we do in our brain. If your gut is telling you to do something, do it. That's it. It's that simple. The heart is right in the middle of the chest, right behind the breastbone. People who are drawn to this kind of work are healers, and they tend to have big hearts. And the term, I wear my heart on my sleeve, is because that heart energy, I don't know if it's where it came from, but it is completely applicable. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that the reason we say this, the reason it makes sense, is because the heart energy comes across here. We create this loop. It goes down the arm to our palms. That's how you show love, right? That's how we show that we are compassionate people. My life's purpose is to light as many candles as I can while I'm here. That's my job. That's what I'm here to do. Whether it's through Reiki or talking to people like you or, whatever, whatever it is that I do. If I provide light for someone else, I've done my job. That's my job. Through my hands. That seems to be how I'm doing it now. So the throat chakra is right here, and the kind of right behind the zygomatic process, right here. There's like the hyphoid? It's right here, buried deep in our throat, and then it extends out of the back of the head at an angle. It also has to do with the jaw, the ears. I had a client one time. She had a recurring nightmare that her teeth were falling out. And it just, the dream just kept happening and happening. And the situation in her dreams were always different. Like she would be out to dinner with a friend and she'd go to talk and her teeth would fall out. Or she'd go to eat something and she'd swallow all of her teeth. And it just, it got to the point where she was becoming a nuisance at her dentist's office. Like, what's wrong with my mouth? So as we're working together and as we're talking, she had shared that her sister had recently come out as gay. And her family was very conservative. Her mother and father were absolutely appalled, completely devastated that she was gay. And she had been married, she had 2 kids, divorced, and after her divorce, she realized that she's gay. And the parents wanted the sister to take their side and completely ostracize the other sibling. And she just could not get in line with that. She was like, I don't care as long as my sister's happy. Like, I get why they're upset. I get their beliefs, but I just can't subscribe to that. She had never had a conversation with her parents about it. She never stood up for her sister. She never asserted her own thoughts and feelings about it. So she was unable to speak her truth. And because the throat chakra has to do with being able to communicate that stuff that lives inside of us, to speak our truth, what we know to be true, how we take space in this world, what we think to be right and wrong, the boundaries that we have in our lives, like, I am so not comfortable with this and I'm fixing to tell you why. That's about our throat chakra. So if we're not able to articulate or express ourselves, then we feel choked. I've had it up to here, right? It also governs the ears. So how many of you, just by a show of hands, have had an interaction with someone who pauses with the sole purpose of letting you finish what you have to say before they just complete their thought? They're not listening to hear you, they're just pausing. Come on, everybody. It's because people aren't really hearing for whatever reason. Maybe they're busy, maybe they don't care. Whatever. So the throat chakra also has a lot to do with the hearing. So can you hear what someone else is saying based on the value of the information they're giving you? Can you hear what they're not telling you? So a lot of times we think about that throat chakra as just being able to project, but it's also about receiving information. Can you hear what people are not telling you? Sometimes you're like, something's living here. So what you actually mean is, right? Is that grammatically correct? So the throat chakra and the sacral chakra are directly connected. The sacral chakra it's the orange one. It's about our emotional intelligence. It's about our creativity. What are some creative activities that you have?
I make soap.
Oh, you're a crafter. I love crafty people. Anybody else?
Painting and drawing.
Mm-hmm.
I like to read. I feel like that's a craft because I have to make it up in my head, like see it how I see it. Not everyone sees the book the same way.
How you spend your free time?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it, huh? Who likes to cook? You want a date?
I really love cooking so much
Cooking?
and
All right.
baking. I think like frosting a cake is almost like painting.
It's like
It's the
cathartic, isn't
same
it?
like feeling to me. It's the same kind of motions, just smells
Mhm.
good.
Very creative. Yeah. I like watching the YouTube videos sometimes of the cake things, people that make that. It's like so awesome. Music. Any musicians? Any singers? Okay. Poetry? Writing? Yeah, writers. Right. So when we have an idea, like a creative idea, a creative spark, we need to let that gestate, right? So where does that live? When we gestate something,
The stomach.
right here, that pelvic basin, it's where our reproductive systems are, right? And the man's internal reproductive system. That's where all of that stuff lives, right here. And it is directly connected to the throat. So when we feel inspired to do some of these things, we have to have an outlet, right? So it may not necessarily be speaking, but it's being able to communicate that stuff that lives within us. The third eye is one of my favorites. So the third eye means a lot of different things. Through the scope of yoga, the third eye is about the internal exploration, being able to look at your internal landscape, looking at those things that you don't necessarily want other people to see, looking at the dark parts of you, the broken parts of you. Johari's window, those parts that you don't show anybody, right? So the third eye is responsible for that. It gives you the opportunity to look at those things like you're unpacking a suitcase without any emotional attachment to it. It's a thing, right? It's an event. It doesn't necessarily define you. So the open third eye, that balanced third eye, gives you an opportunity to do that internal inventory. It also gives you the opportunity to project your wants, your desires, and your dreams into your reality. Law of attraction. Anybody familiar with that? Law of attraction? The book, The Secret? Yes, no? Okay. So the law of attraction says that what I put out into the universe is going to come back to me. That I am going to attract those things in which I put out. Right? Water finds its own level. It's amazing when you raise your energy, which is what Reiki helps us do. It brings us up in vibration. Red is the slowest vibrating color, right? This follows the color spectrum. Red is the lowest vibrating color. White is the highest vibrating color. When people get a Reiki attunement, it brings their energy vibration higher. This is all proved by science. Like we've been able to study and measure this stuff. It's quantifiable. It's not like hippy dippy mumbo jumbo stuff. Like it's legit. It's a science. People have been able to study this. So as we move up, we're able to start vibrating at a higher speed. That means that molecules and atoms vibrate at a certain rate of speed, which gives them their form, their shape, right? So what this desk is made up of is vibrating at a different rate than my dress, but it's still made of the basic building blocks, made of the same stuff. The molecules are just vibrating at a different rate of speed. Yes, we know this to be true. Science has told us that this is true. It's no different for us as an energy body. As we start to vibrate at a certain rate of speed, we will start to attract other things that are vibrating at that same rate. So as we increase our energy, we will find that the people who are vibrating and existing on a lower energy level, because that's where they are, no judgment, that's just where they are, they're going to move away from us, right? Think of a time when you've made a serious life change, and that miraculously, that problem that you had that was just nagging at you was like, oh, hey, look, it's gone. Sweet. It happens. We don't usually realize it until after we're through it, 20/20 hindsight, but it does happen because we're vibrating at a certain rate of speed. So the third eye gives us an opportunity to project out into the universe what it is that we desire and we need most, right? So as I'm laying in my bed, contemplating the darkest parts of my life, and I'm thinking, there really has to be more than this. There has to be better. There has to be more. What am I supposed to be doing? Why is this happening? And I'm not picking up on the cues that the universe is giving me. The people that are coming into my life that the universe is like, so, like my mentor, my yoga mentor. So you're going to come to yoga? You want to come to yoga? Would you like to go to yoga? Hey, let's go to yoga. The universe brought her into my life because I needed to reach that level of vibration. The universe also recognized that my energy level needed to be somewhere else, and prison wasn't the place I needed to be anymore. So the universe was like, oh my goodness, look at that. Bink. Right? So that implies that there is some kind of cosmic intelligence that exists in the universe. Do we call that God?
I mean, if you want to.
I mean, if you want to, right? So that's the difference between spirituality and religion. We have the freedom to explore, right? To allow things to resonate with us, right? So the crown chakra is our connection to divine. It's white. It's the highest vibrating speed. There's a certain breathing technique or pranayama exercise that's called a skull shining breath, and it literally polishes the inside of the skull, because the way that you're using your breath, you're sending so much oxygenated blood into the top of your brain. It starts to create it syncs the brain waves between the right and left hemisphere. Massage will also do that. So the brain, to cognate, has to vibrate at 2 different speeds, the right and left hemisphere, or we can't have actual cognition. The brain can't function that way and allow us to function in the world. So that skull shining breath starts to bring the right and left sides of the brain into equal wavelengths. It's really, really, really interesting. And when you reach that state, it sends a signal to the reptilian part of the brain, the amygdala, that fight, flight, or freeze response that lives in the amygdala. It's like it depresses the central nervous system to the degree that you experience deep relaxation. So pranayama is really, really important. And pranayama is just breath work. That's the exercise of breathing, right? So we think about breathing, and we don't think about it because it's part of our parasympathetic nervous system, so it just happens, like our heart beats because it does. But what happens if you stop breathing? And what happens then?
Start breathing.
You start breathing on your own. But what happens if you actually just stop breathing?
Die.
You die. So we're talking about improving quality of life, and death is counterintuitive to that, yes? Right. So when you're sitting across from a client and they're, where are they going? What are they doing? Really easy. They're going to hyperventilate. They're going to pass out. Right? So sometimes all you have to do is say, they will start to mirror you. Telling somebody to breathe or slow down is like telling an anxious person to relax. I am relaxed! What's wrong with you? Okay. If that's how you handle stress, okay. So we have this energy system in our body that is super amazing. Reiki can help to balance that energy, but as I said, my experience has been working all this time. My experience has been that because we all have this inherent system, that you don't really need to give it to somebody else, and they don't really need to give it to you, right? You already have it there. And being able to identify kind of where things are out of whack or out of balance, you can start to move stuff around. Or you can bring to their awareness, hey, so seems to me you haven't had a bath in a couple days. How are you feeling? Do you have a place to put your stuff so that you know it'll be there when you get out of the shower? Do you have a place to shower? Because now we're talking about physical safety, right? We're talking about them trying to protect their belongings. How am I taking care of my basic needs if I'm afraid that my basic needs aren't going to be taken care of? So sometimes it's really about asking the simple questions. Don't overthink things, right? You've done such an amazing job going to school and getting to this level, and I commend all of you. Absolutely 100% commend you. But what I'm going to tell you is sometimes you have to use your basic common sense. They don't put that shit in a book. Just saying. Use your common sense. Ask questions that just make sense to you. But I really wish somebody had asked me that. So ask. It's not that difficult. Just ask questions. The worst thing that's going to happen is that you're wrong. So you ask a different question. And then they challenge you. And you're like, no. They get defensive. Guess what you found?
Right.
You found a scab, right? Yeah. So I'm going to give you one more thing. What if I told you that the spirit, because, we have this energy field, right? What if the spirit does not reside within the body? What if the body actually resides within the spirit? What if the spirit is using this body as a vehicle to experience humanity. What if this body, in its fragility, in its ability to heal and experience, to touch, what if this body is really just the vehicle that the spirit is driving around? And the spirit's really the one in charge. And it wants to experience pain. Because without pain, we don't know joy. It wants to know what it feels like to be depleted. Because then it knows what it feels like to feel full. What if the spirit wants to know suffering? Because joy is so amazing. What if you looked at your clients as though they are people who are on this amazing journey? And you can just ask questions. What if you found your purpose through your human experiences and your connection to your divine spirit, and you enjoyed yourself? Questions? No questions? Comments? Yes, sir.
I guess I have a question. Do you find that you use a lot of this stuff on your daughter?
Yes. With her permission.
Yeah.
It's important to ask permission, right? You don't just walk into somebody's house
Yeah.
and be like, fix me a sandwich. Yeah. Yeah. She thinks I'm weird. And I'm so okay with that. Because, yeah, that gives her permission to be weird too. Yeah. Thank you. Christian, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's doing so good. Nothing? There's a lot of information up here.
I guess I have a question.
Yes,
What
Bree.
do you find is most beneficial when you're working with people? Do you find that like Reiki or massage or something specific that you do works better than other things?
That's a good question. So the question was, do I find that one specific modality works better? It depends on the client, really, what they need and what they're receptive to. I have people that I work with that I can pick up different things, and I'm like, ooh, you would really benefit from this, but they're not there. So they maybe just get some massage, just move some stuff around, soft tissue stuff. Like, so I'm curious, have you ever thought, I just ask a question, if they're receptive, that opens the door to maybe using some other modalities. It's a good question, thank you. Did that answer you?
Yes.
Okay. So what's your takeaway? What are you walking out of here with tonight? I see like 4 of you like on that pause, like, I think I might ask a question. But if they hear my voice, I don't know what to do with that. Yes, I don't remember your name.
Jenny.
Jenny.
I don't know, I got a lot out of tonight, especially from you being so like open and honest with us today, so thank you for that. And I have a lot of like bullet points I was putting down because I wanted to catch, a lot of little things that you were saying. But I think what stuck out to me was when we were talking about boundaries, like how if you find that you're somehow like crossing them, like when you talk with clients, or just if you come to that conclusion, you might need your own outlet, and that ties into like the whole self-care thing. And I think that's something that we forget, that we too can have our own outlet and do the same thing that our clients are coming to us for. So I thought that was very important and a good reminder for us.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Jenny. Yes.
I agree with Jenny, the self-care. I think that, like, where are you, or who am I? I think this age for us, or this state of life of, trying to help other people, forget who are we. And we also forget that it like constantly changes. Like you said, you went through many who am I stages. And so I think that like we're so stuck in like, oh, I can only be one person or one type of person, but we have to like remember it can change. Like you said, the universe pushes us and stuff like that. So that's kind of reassuring.
Great, good. Thank you. I don't remember your name.
Liz.
Liz. Thank you, Liz.
I like what you said about boundaries, but if it's okay, like to give a hug, I think sometimes we forget like human contact is so powerful, and there's like healing properties in it. Well, I believe there is. By just a simple hug, it can do so much for somebody.
Absolutely. And I don't remember your name.
Nicole.
Nicole. Yeah. Thank you, Nicole. Are you a hugger?
Yeah.
I knew it. Like she's a hugger.
I did that the other day. I hugged a client after I asked permission, of course. I said, "Do you need a hug?" And she said yes. But everyone looked at me really weird because I hugged her. It's like, "You're gonna touch her?" It's like, well, why not? She's in pain. She's crying. She's upset. She expressed that she was having a really hard time, and it kind of seemed like she needed to know that someone cared about her. So I hugged her and told her that she meant something to me, because I didn't want her to walk away feeling like she didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they push that aside a lot where I'm at my internship, which I finished today. But like they're just like, no, we're gonna talk about work and work only, and we're not gonna talk about the fact that you're really upset right now.
Mm-hmm.
So they looked at me funny because I did it, but I thought that's what she needed right then.
How'd you feel about it after the fact?
Good. I mean, I don't have a problem having contact with people.
Right.
And I don't know, it kind of bothered me that they were just like, yeah, just type something. It's like, it's not what she needs right now. She
Right.
needs to hear that, like, she's an important person and that she means something.
Sure.
And I just kind of felt like they were just, like, tossing that aside. So.
Yeah. And you felt okay at the end of it. There was nothing inside of you that was like, you felt completely at peace with your choice.
Yeah, I had no
Yeah.
problem hugging her.
Then
at
what
all.
other people think about you is none of your business.
Yeah, and everyone was in the room, so it's not like it was a secret. Everyone saw it. So I didn't do it like in a side office, like, I'm gonna hug you, okay? It's like,
Yeah.
I said, do you need a hug? And we stood up in the middle of a crowded room. There were like 20 people around. And
Great.
got a hug.
Perfect. Perfect. Because there may have been somebody else sitting there like, she definitely needed that hug.
Well, there was, because one of the other members came up and hugged her too.
Yep.
So it became a thing.
Oh my gosh. It was
I-
like a hugging domino effect.
Yeah.
Everybody was hugging. That was awesome.
Yeah, and she's like rubbing her back and telling her that she was special. And I think
Yep.
that was important, because then it was more than one person telling her that she was important.
Right.
So I just felt like that was what she
You
needed.
put the human in human services. Thank you. Free.
Mhm.
Christiana.
So I actually accepted a new job today.
Congratulations. That's fabulous.
So I'm actually going back home. I live in Worcester now. Well, I graduated from Assumption in May, so I kind of jumped into a grad program. So I graduated May 14th and May 23rd, I think was my first class. So I think I kind of moved too fast, and I didn't really think about what I wanted, because right now I work with older adults. I'm actually going back home to my old after-school program. Or me and Christian are from the same town. We grew up going to the program together.
Nice.
And so I'm going to be a program coordinator there. And
Congratulations.
It's what makes me happy, and I love the human services, but I haven't been able to find my population or anything yet. And I did go into the human services because my mom had a disability, and she passed away before my senior year. So I've kind of had a hard year, and I've been trying, and a lot of the times I'm reminded of her, and I think a lot of times when people are personally impacted, they go towards that, but for me, I think I kind of need to back away from it.
Sure.
So that's why I did a career change.
Well, congratulations. That's called self-care.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. Thank you. Anybody else? Christian?
I like what you said. I mean, you talked a lot about you felt like the universe pushing you, especially with the prison thing, and how about accidents, about how nothing can really be an accident. And it made me think about a lot of stuff. Like one of my favorite bosses got a new job, so I was really bummed out. But like everything happens for a reason, type of thing. So I was kind of thinking like that, where now it will allow me to leave that job and not feel bad and stuff. But it just made me think about a lot of stuff, and I think that holds true, and everyone always forgets that and just gets caught up in the moment and thinks this is the worst thing ever, or whatever it may be, even with people you might work with.
Yeah, they have a really, really hard time seeing the glass as even like 49% full. Forget 50 or
Seeing down the road
51.
is really tough and
Yeah.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, they're still in that option reduction kind of stage of their life, yeah. Thank you, Christian. Hmm? Nope. Holly. I really did think about it.
So I have a lot of like knowledge surrounding tea and like what various like herbs and stuff do. So sort of my takeaway is I see a lot of connection in between like what herbs are to do for you, or like tea is supposed to do with you, and alongside the yoga and the Reiki. So I think that puts a whole new perspective on sort of what like naturalistic, holistic things can do for you. Like it puts it into a whole new picture.
Yeah. Very good, thank you. Holly. You're looking away like, don't pick me, don't pick me. And so did you look down.
That's Mary's MO.
I love
Very
your
quiet.
I love your body language. Your body language is so much fun. I entertain myself by thinking about what other people are doing.
This is her first grad class, so she's a little scared.
Okay. That's great. Everything is a first the first time. Yeah. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, thank you so much for being such an attentive group. Thank you for your input. Thank you for allowing me to come and share space with you and share my story. And I'm really, really grateful. So, and good luck. Oh, can I just share one little thing? I was absolutely intimidated to come here. Completely 100%. I didn't finish college. I quit school my junior year in high school because I had to get a full-time job. And I got my GED 3 weeks later. And so I was a working adult when I tried to go back to college. I'm going to move back over. And so I was a working adult already working in the prison system when I went back to college. So as I'm sitting here and my teachers, my professors are like, okay, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, question? So in theory, this is super awesome, but this doesn't work. I'm just letting you know right out of the box. And so all the other people in my class were like, right out of high school, and they were right into college, and I'm an adult with with a baby and working in prison. And it's like, this is not for me, which was fine. But it intimidated me to come here and stand in front of you, educated people, right? I have a different, I have a different education and a different skill set. But this was intimidating for me to speak to you, and which is really kind of funny because I speak to like really big groups of people sometimes on all different levels, education, socioeconomic, age, gender. That doesn't really bother me. I'm like, yeah, we got this. This intimidated me. So you have no idea. I don't even know that I have the words, which is ironic, to articulate really how amazing this experience was for me. So thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so grateful.
You did great. You didn't show 1 ounce of insecurity.
No.
You did really great.
That's why I was so effective in prison. Never let them see you sweat. And that's it. Thank you so much.